Whether it's hurricane season or any time of the year, there's always the chance that the power will go out. How can you be prepared for that when it comes to food safety? Think about that with us today. Hi, my name is Mike Dyes. Welcome to Weekend Connection. Now, let's get connected. Power outages caused by floods, ice storms, hurricanes, and other natural disasters can lead to many challenges. One of the highest priorities is to make sure, though, that our food is safe. Today we're going to talk about severe weather food safety as we talk with Meredith Carruthers, a food safety expert with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Meredith has a master's degree in public health with a focus in community health promotion. Meredith, welcome back to Weekend Connection.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we certainly don't want to alarm people unnecessarily, but it is good to be prepared for what could come up. So let's think about that today. I imagine some people have thought a lot about preparing for emergencies, while others haven't given it much thought at all. What should they, first of all, think about as they're thinking about what might happen? What's a good starting point?
Sure. So a great first thing to consider is how much you have in your refrigerator and freezer and how you would keep those perishable food items safe if you had an extended power outage. A lot of times power outages happen unexpectedly, whether from a windstorm or even, just heavy rain in some places, or something more severe like a natural disaster, like a hurricane or flood. So it kind of just, it's good to always have an idea of what you have, what resources you have to help keep those food items cold if you have a power outage that lasts longer than a few hours. Keep a cooler on hand if you can with some ice, or just like I said, have a general idea of what's in your refrigerator so you know how much you'd want to save or may have to discard or, would be okay with discarding after. And those are some good first ways to start even considering what could happen during a long power outage or a potential storm.
Now we're thinking about foods that require little or no cooking, water, or refrigeration. Is that a general guideline to look for, what we should have on hand?
Those would be some good things to have, yes. So if you don't have power or don't have safe water, honestly, to use if you're going through a flood or something like that, having some of those non-perishable items on hand, like canned, vegetables, canned soups, things that you could eat cold if you had to, straight out of the can, or other dried goods that don't require cooking or power in order to cook them, would be good. The thing to consider with those, however, is that once they're open from the can, they do need refrigeration to stay safe after the fact. So then also, if you do have to open up some of those items during a power outage to eat, making sure you're not opening too much that can't then be saved after the fact.
There's an old scenario we kind of joke about. Little snows in the forecast, people rush to the store to buy bread and milk. But it is good to be prepared. And one of the things I think we need to prepare for if we have young children is that we have enough baby formula on hand in case something went wrong.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Yep. So having stuff like that, and then making sure you have clean water to mix with stuff like that, and having clean water to drink as well. Bottled water is a great option for natural disasters. It does get a little finicky when you do have flood waters that potentially contaminate some of those items. And we can go through that in detail later on if you'd like. But flood waters do make things potentially unsafe because there's a lot of organisms and bacteria in flood water that would not be good to consume. But for a power outage or something a little less severe than a flood, having bottled water on hand, that would be a good, safe way to prepare a lot of those items.
I bought some water as I was thinking about our discussion coming up on food safety. And I think the jugs of water actually had expiration dates on them, which I didn't know that ever happened, that you put an expiration date on water. But even that we can keep too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of that has to do more so with the packaging, I think, that those are in. Sometimes those packages and like the plastic and stuff is only meant to survive for so long without it potentially affecting the water or the quality of the water. So it's not so much that the water itself will go bad, but it's just, better to try and use those within the time frame that the company has designated it would be at best quality.
All right. Well, we're talking with Meredith Carruthers, a food safety expert with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. All right. So now the power has come back. As a general rule, tasting the food is not recommended as a way to figure out if it's still safe, right?
Right. We don't recommend to taste the food to see if it is safe or not. The thing about foodborne illness causing bacteria is that they're not detectable by taste, sight, smell. They don't give you any kind of indication that they're present, which makes it pretty dangerous because you actually don't know if they're there or not, which is a little different than something like spoilage bacteria, which will, make the food have a smell. It might start to get a slimy texture, might change color. So when you see those types of signs, it definitely means that spoilage bacteria are present, but foodborne illness bacteria won't give you any of that indication. So tasting it is not recommended because if they are present and you taste it, it might actually mean that you're consuming or ingesting foodborne illness causing bacteria, and that could get you sick. So we don't recommend doing that.
One thing I didn't ask you about, if we keep the refrigerator closed during the power outage and the freezer closed, that will still keep things safe for a certain period of time, right?
Yes, for a certain period of time. So for perishable food items to remain safe, they have to be stored below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. When the temperature rises above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, bacteria can start to multiply, and those can eventually reach dangerous levels to where the food item can't be made safe again. Most of us at our homes are usually keeping our refrigerators at about 40 or below. So when that refrigerator gets above 40 is when it's starting to, potentially keep the food in an unsafe environment. Usually if you keep the door closed of your refrigerator, it'll keep a safe temperature for about 4 hours. So if the timing is going to be longer than a 4-hour time period, it's recommended to start considering, moving those perishables to a cooler or a neighbor's fridge or something else to help keep them cold. If you anticipate a storm coming, you can freeze water bottles, freeze other things that then you can put in a cooler to help keep those items cold, or, go get some ice and make sure that they're staying cold. The freezer, on the other hand, because that's usually kept at about, 0 degrees Fahrenheit, that's going to keep a safe temperature for a lot longer than the refrigerator will. Your
Mm-hmm.
freezer, if it's half full, will usually keep a safe temperature for about 24 hours. And if it's pretty full, it'll keep a safe temperature for about 48 hours. So even if foods have started to thaw, as long as it's been less than 48 hours and you have a pretty full fridge, those items would still technically be considered safe.
I read, when in doubt, throw it out. I guess if nothing else, we can just go by that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned floods. Let's talk a little bit specifically about floods. What are some of the special food safety challenges related to flooding?
So flooding can just really wreak havoc on somebody's kitchen or any food supply that they have because, like I said, flooded water has a lot of bacteria and disease-causing organisms and stuff like that in it. And if certain food products and containers come in contact with flood water, it's not really something that you can make safe. So if flood water comes into contact with any food that's not in a waterproof container, so those are going to be things like boxes, anything with a screw cap, so like bottled water sometimes, anything like snap lids or pull tops, stuff like that is not able to be saved from flood water, unfortunately. And then anything in your fridge that's not in an airtight container, all of those would have to be discarded. And then canned foods are something that can technically be saved, but it does depend on if they've been damaged at all. If they've been damaged and they show swelling, leakage, holes or dents or stuff like that, definitely not recommended to keep those, and those can't really be made safe. And then retort packages, which are kind of like a flexible plastic packaging, are considered waterproof, and those could be saved as well.
We're talking with Meredith Carruthers, Technical Information Specialist with the Food Safety Education staff at the USDA. It's a reminder that it's a good idea to keep food on a shelf if possible, right? To keep it in case there is flooding, it's safer as it's higher up on the shelf.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you'll have more of a chance of it being avoiding flood water the higher up that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if there's a severe flood that fills, very high heights, it might get affected, but yes, in general, keeping things up higher will help prevent it from reaching that floodwater more often.
Mm-hmm. Anything else we didn't cover when it comes to flooding or perhaps a hurricane? Are there specific items we didn't cover when it comes to something like that as the need arises?
Certain canned foods and retort packages can be made safe after they've come into contact with floodwater. And so we have a few recommendations on how to do that. If you have any cans or retort packages that have been in contact with floodwater, we first recommend to remove the labels because those can kind of harbor some of that dirt and bacteria at times. So removing the labels if you can, and then thoroughly washing them with hot soap and water. After that, you'll want to either submerge them in boiling water for 2 minutes, or you can also put them in a solution of 1 tablespoon of bleach per gallon of drinking water for 15 minutes. And after that, they should be air dried for an hour, and then they should be okay to use after that.
How long should we wait before we drink water from a faucet? Is there a general guideline or something like that, or is it pretty much a safe thing unless we hear otherwise?
So that's where we usually would defer to any of your local public works or local public health department or anything like that. Sometimes if pipes have become compromised, they'll let you know that you're on a boil advisory and you should boil your water to make it safe to drink. If you have something like a well and it's been contaminated with floodwaters, it's definitely recommended to get that checked by your state or local health department first before you drink that. But usually you'll be notified if you're on some kind of boil water advisory. And if you're ever in doubt, go ahead and boil the water just to make sure, boil it, let it come to a cool, and then it should be safe to drink after that.
Helping you as you prepare for what could happen. I didn't mention pets, but that's another thing to think about, having things on hand, food on hand for our pets. Hey, what are some of the ways that folks can find out more about food safety? You have some great resources.
Sure. So we have lots of resources, including a chart that breaks down exactly what foods in your fridge or your freezer would be safe or not after a long power outage. You can find those at www.fsis.usda.gov or foodsafety.gov. We also have a toll-free meat and poultry hotline that you can call to speak with a live food safety expert like myself. A lot of times we get calls regarding power outages and people wanting to go through their refrigerators and have us, guide them on what's safe and what's not after the power outage that they've experienced. So we're available to help you do that if needed. You can call us at 1-888-MP-HOTLINE. So that's 1-888-674-6854. Or you can live chat with us on ask.usda.gov as well. We're available Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, except for federal holidays. Or you can also send us an email at mphotline@usda.gov. So that's 1-888-674-6854. Or you can live chat with us on ask.usda.gov. So there's lots of ways to get our resources and get in touch with us about anything power outage related or severe storms.
Very good. Thank you for all that good information and things I didn't even know were available. So be sure to contact the folks at the USDA with your food safety questions. Meredith, thank you very much. Meredith Carruthers, food safety expert with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much.
That number again, 888-674-6854. That's 888-MP-HOTLINE. My name is Mike Dyes. Thanks for joining us here at Weekend Connection. Join us next Saturday at this same time.
Thank you for listening to this feature, a production of BBN, the Bible Broadcasting Network. BBN provides 24-hour Christian programming, great Christian music, and Bible teaching. Listen to BBN by clicking the link in the description.